Law enforcement officials say this alleged shooter posted a 180-page manifesto online just days before the attack, and it draws on and references replacement theory at least 28 times. That is a racist conspiracy theory that basically in Western countries like the United States and some countries in Europe, some type of racial and religious group of external minorities from somewhere else in the world will, quote, replace the rightful white supremacist majority of those nations. Now, at one time, this was considered, quote, unquote, fringe. But again, when you hear what Mr. Crump asks about how we in America will deal with this, we're not talking about red and blue here. We're not talking about the size of the government. We're not talking about policy. We are talking about a growing push to get people thinking like this so they might act like this, which is why we believe we've tried to put together some important reporting on this important problem tonight. Because this is being amplified and pushed by some very influential people in America, and specifically on the right. For example, Fox News host Tucker Carlson. People count up this kind of stuff, so whether you watch him or not, the fact is that the people who do and who track this note that he has made a reference or variation to this type of hateful conspiracy theory, this replacement thing, over 400 times since 2016. There are some nights where it seems just like the core point of his show.
In political terms, this policy is called the Great Replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans.
The strategy is to change the demographics of the country. You disempower the people who live here. You take their votes away. The Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate.
What Tucker does there has a little partisan spin. You heard that at the end. It talks about one party doing this. But make no mistake, in case someone is narrow-minded enough to only look at this through partisan lenses, as we've documented on this program before, where this came from, out of hateful corners of Europe, and where this is going is really not about parties. It is about trying to have a race war. Now, this alleged gunman screed invokes the race replacement theory. Now, I want to say, on our MSNBC coverage from across the weekend through tonight, there is a careful goal not to indiscriminately echo or disseminate every piece of this, every claim or lie inside this conspiracy theory. To show the exact evidence, though, of the link to this very serious mass murder this weekend, I'm now going to quote a portion of this suspect's claims for you, including his admission that this exact racist worldview is what got him thinking about committing violence. Quote, "I learned that the white race is dying out, that blacks are disproportionately killing whites. We are doomed by high rates of immigration," he says, again there at the end of that quote. And he later writes, quote, "My race was doomed, and it was there that I started to think about committing an attack," end quote. His words. Now, as a matter of reporting or law, there is not a stipulation here drawing a causal link between this act and this violence and any individual person's rhetoric. Indeed, this kind of investigation can be quite complex and take a long time when you go beyond what happened that day to what may or may not have caused it, who is linked to it, or in legal terms, if there's any other direct actors, whether there was some sort of attempted conspiracy. That is not what we are asserting here, and I say that in all deliberate care. At the same time, we note there are ways that this very screed from this very alleged killer echo exactly what has been pushed out here across parts of the European and American right wing and across parts of Fox News and Tucker Carlson's show.
How precisely is diversity our strength? Since you've made this our new national motto, please be specific as you explain it. Can you think, for example, of other institutions, such as, I don't know, marriage or military units, in which the less people have in common, the more cohesive they are? Do you get along better with your neighbors or your coworkers if you can't understand each other or share no common values?
There is that overlap. As for Fox's position on this, they are not directly commenting. They did tell the Washington Post that there are examples they pointed to where Tucker Carlson has spoken out against violence. And because he has a platform, he may speak out on it, of course, this week. Now, this weekend, another person has drawn on this conspiracy theory and these words, this time committing a mass murder. But it's not the first time that these ideas, which many of which are constitutionally protected speech, you can say these things. So it's not the first time that they've moved towards actions that are not protected because they involve menacing or violence. In 2017, we saw the neo-Nazis directly quoting this same thing, replacement theory, as they marched in Charlottesville.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
You will not replace us! You will not replace us! You will not replace us!
You will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. Part of the writings of this conspiracy theory have the idea that in America or these Western states, Jews will help foreign minorities, quote unquote, take over. And Europe doesn't have a great record on these issues if you look at the far right and the hate speech and what hate speech can lead to. Now, others have trafficked in this and meant it. There was Brenton Tarrant. In March of 2019, he attacked 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand, killing 51 people, pushing white supremacy, posting about replacement theory. And what you see here is how that can drive interest. This is international Google data, which shows a spike in searches for replacement theory around that incident. Then in August 2019, you have a spike when another shooter, Patrick Crusoes, attacked that Walmart in El Paso. 23 people died there. He posted online complaining or warning of what he viewed a Hispanic invasion of Texas. Then you have April 2021. That's the biggest spike to date. That's Google data, and you see the person pushing it that time through media was Tucker Carlson. He talked about a demographic replacement on air. The New York Times reports on this as well, and you see that massive spike in interest. Today, well, searches for replacement theory, after some spiking down, are back up again after this alleged gunman has been linked to the conspiracy theory. What you see on your screen is something that may be less fringe in the numerical sense, as it is embraced by some who want to talk about it, which, as I mentioned, in the United States is allowed, and embraced by others who want to use it as a pretext or explanation or incitement of terrible violence and terrorism.